subtle hints. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again to another Terran Top Tip tutorial. Today, we're going to talk about splitting Marines, pre-splitting, and all sorts of jazz. To help us do this, we need Marines, we need Banelings. We can get a little bit fancier later if we want, but the general gist of it is, if you play TVZ and you fight a Zerg player, this can happen to you a lot. And we don't want that to happen. So, let us take a look at this. People have been asking. You guys ask every video I make. It's Legacy of the Void Unit Tester Online. LOTV Unit Tester Online, if you want to use this. Lets you put units and stuff all over the map. So, the basic principle of splitting is that as units approach, you want to move your units apart so that they don't all die. Now, in this scenario, I kind of limited myself a bit here. I don't want to go too fast. It's going to be hard for you guys to do that. So you might say, Nate, how do you really split? Well, there's a couple ways that you can do it that are relatively high-level techniques. The first thing you want to do, the most standard method to splitting is, imagine Banelings are coming. You have map hacks, you know they're coming. You stim, and you just grab little pieces of your Marines. You spread them out. And then you have some Marines left. If you kill all your opponent's Banelings and you can push forward and kill creep tumors or something, you're doing a good job. But there are a few other ways to do it as well. So that's the most basic part. And just to go over that one more time, if you are being attacked by someone, and we can even test this out on creep as well, since I know you guys want a real show of how it's done. Basically, that was pretty bad. But the gist is to at least have a few Marines left over. And you can do it like that, but that's, in my opinion, the hardest way to do it. So there's a couple of other ways you can do it, even if you're on creep. So just to show you quite quickly, you can do something that I like to call patrol splitting. Now, patrol splitting is something that can be done when you are in a fight, not very well. You can also do it before a fight, and I love to do this. If you ever watch my stream, you always see me do stuff like this if I'm about to take a big Marine engagement. And this may seem weird, but I like to do this. You say, well, Nate, what purpose does this really serve? Well, if your opponent attacks into you and you're doing this, they're going to have a real hard time. So, why would a Zerg attack into you when you're set up like this? Well, assume that you want to do this in a really, really fast way, right? The Zerg has something here that you want to kill, and you want to attack on creep and get it. So what you do is you're on creep, okay, right before the Zerg comes, you scan ahead, you're like, alright, well, let me just spread this out, and then I'll take a few Marines and move forward. And then, suddenly, you can kind of bait them into attacking you. So, the best way to do a patrol split like this is you just kind of grab a bunch of your Marines and just press patrol and click on random spots and just keep boxing different amounts. Marines naturally split when being patrolled. They naturally change their pathing to route around each other so they don't bump into each other like they normally do. As if you were using a normal ability like just move, command, or attack, move. Now, patrol splitting can be hard to do when your opponent has a lot of units on their way towards you, because if you use patrol, they will also shoot at the nearest enemy. So if you are setting yourself up and you've got, okay, a good number of Marines, the Banelings come, and you're just like, alright, well, let me patrol split like this, it can still work. Obviously, I didn't really do much splitting after the patrol part, but it can still work, but it's not as effective as pre-splitting with patrol. So an ideal scenario for this, I can make this a little bit more realistic, maybe, right? We'll give the Zerg some mutas, we'll give the Terran some medevacs, maybe some tanks, and some more Marines. We'll give the Zerglings as well as a lot more Banelings, right? So try to keep the army supply somewhat close. It's Zerg, right? So they usually have a little bit more. So say you want to attack a Zerg player, right? And you know that the Zerg player is going to have some stuff. And the Zerg player wants to fight on creep because they get the movement speed bonus, they get all this beautiful stuff. I'll push the creep out a little bit further to make it more simple. So if you want to try to do stuff like this, and this guide is mostly just about taking these sorts of engagements that require you to marine split, but making it easier on yourself. So naturally, you're gonna move your tanks onto like the edge of creep. I have my patrol bound to W, by the way. If you've watched my Legacy of the Void hotkey guide, then you already know that. And if you use my hotkeys, then you've already got that set up. Not ready to fight yet. A siege tank got a little antsy. So you can't really push on super hard yet, right? So what you want to do, if you stim these Marines in, the Banelings will kill all of them, right? Maybe your tanks get some splash, but the Zerg player is spread out defensively. He's waiting for you to come in. Obviously, you'd probably have a few more mutas than this, but the general idea is that you're going to start to pre-split using patrol. Your Marines are naturally spreading out, and you just keep boxing small groups and pressing, in my case, W, and clicking somewhere where your Marines aren't going. Then you grab a few, you stim, they die, but you can continue to put pressure on because you've got Marines in the back that can deal with things like the mutas. And most importantly, once that's over, you take a few more and you just keep poking, right? And more often than not, you'll be able to bait your opponent into attacking you. Now, obviously with siege tanks, you can do this a little more aggressively by dropping them, but the idea kind of remains the same. So, like I said, the general premise of this is that if you want to do an attack against Zerg, if you want to know how to properly split your Marines, let's just say that you think your opponent is going to attack you. I mean, it's as simple as you can just do this whenever you want. It's a good thing to practice doing because if you want to make a big push out, you don't want to have your army clumped up behind you, you know? You want to try to take the fight, bait them back into your Marines, and then you can stim, individually spread out. All that jazz. You can kill a lot while you're waiting for your next wave of Marines or what have you to show up. So that's the basic idea behind that. I don't think that there's too much else really that comes down to just normal splitting. The best way to get good at just splitting Marines straight up is to practice. This is probably too many Banelings to split against, but you know, your opponent is gonna do these things where they're gonna try to kill you and whatnot, but it's all about being fast. And patrolling can help quite a bit. So it can help minimize your losses at least. And you can do this. The more Marines you have, obviously, the more difficult it gets. If we were to just go even supply on Marines versus Banelings, Banelings should win. Like I said, in a straight up fight, there's like several Banelings left over. So if we just boom, boom. And then just very, very last second, if you want to attack aggressively, you can do this. And then once your units start to fight, you just pull them back one or two at a time. And you should, if you do it right, have some Marines left. So, like I said, I have my patrol bound to W, as you guys can see here. I press W, I left click, Marine starts going. And these guys do not like bumping into each other. So, if I have them both standing here, of course, this is a pretty simple one, but the general idea is, even if I had them all patrolling to here, eventually they're still going to break apart a little bit. You guys can see this, right? So this is one of the reasons why patrol is super useful for pre-splitting. And this isn't meant to be a super high-level splitting tutorial because I know if you don't have 420 APM, it can be pretty hard. But even this is better than just leaving them clumped if you guys want to see. So even this is better than leaving them clumped. Obviously, you're going to need to put a little bit more work in than that. But, yeah, patrol. It's a pretty cool thing to use. And this is just meant to be a nice short little guide on how to split. And like I said, as another person did ask, it's as simple as you just grab these, grab half your Marines after you do the first patrol, and then patrol them somewhere else. And grab the other half of the original half, and then patrol them somewhere else, and patrol them. And they'll just naturally spread themselves out. So you can use this to dodge all sorts of AoE. If you're being attacked, I think this works best against Banelings, but it will work against things like Storm and whatnot. In fact, we can just quickly go over that as well, since some of you are probably wondering, right? We're just gonna do a couple of other scenarios where maybe there's something else I can teach you here too, now that I think about it. Another great thing to be able to do is to split against siege tanks, actually. So you can do Templar after this. So you got siege tanks, right? And siege tanks, boy oh boy, are they scary. These guys destroy Terran armies, especially armies made of pure Marines, right? So I mean, 6 siege tanks is a lot. If we stim a move into this, the Marines take lots of splash damage. And as you can see, Marines, we had about 40 some Marines versus 6 siege tanks. And, well, the siege tanks clearly won that. But there is a better way to do it as well. For all sorts of splitting, all sorts of other methods. So, to kind of give you guys an idea, if you've ever wondered, first of all, you should always try to spread out before taking an engagement in TVT against tanks. If you've got a lot of Marines, you can beat tanks. Before I do this, I'll just tell you very quickly, the goal here is going to be to individually step forward Marines. The AI for units like tanks and literally every unit in the game is to attack the closest threat. So you're going to watch me step a few Marines forward, and it's going to drastically reduce the splash damage I take. So we're going to charge into this tank line one more time. I'm just going to take a few Marines and just run them a little bit forward ahead of all the others. And as you can see, the siege tanks are going to fire at those Marines rather than the big clumps. So let's add 3 more siege tanks. Let's really step it up a notch here, okay? So let's make it a little tougher. It's not obviously going to work at certain points. If your opponent has Marines, you're going to need more. But you can do this in TVT. If your opponent has Marines, you can still spread out like this before you take a fight. You'll have your own tanks that you're going to drop as well. But the general idea is to minimize the damage that you take from sieged tanks. So one thing I like to do, now let's just do it. One thing I really like to do while kind of doing this, of course you can still split like normal, but notice how the tanks are always going to shoot at the closest Marine. I kind of botched that one. So notice how the tanks always shoot at the closest Marine. You can really see the benefit of it there. One thing I really like to do is you can bait out the first tank shot or two by already moving forward. You could even just before you get into a fight, just put 1 or 2 Marines in front of the rest of your Marines and just do it like that, you know? Like that's also a good option. So basically just saying, put a couple Marines in front and just go ham. Let your other Marines shoot. Obviously, this is a lot of tanks, but my point is, it's better than dying in 3 shots. So, I think the last thing that I was asked about was if you are up against Psionic Storm. Honestly, it pretty much works the same way. If you keep your army spread out, you should really never have any issues with dealing with this sort of thing, honestly. So, naturally, a storm will cover most of these Marines. But if you're going to take a fight, you want to stay spread as thin as possible. And really, just remember that storms don't stack. So spreading them out as Protoss is the best thing that you can do. But there's really not much to it. You can run through them. You can run around them. I don't really have any pro tips for this, but I was asked about it. So I'll honestly just say pre-splitting is even more important. If you were to be patrol splitting, then yeah, I guess, you know, you can do a couple clumps. So that's just 5 patrols I just used. Obviously, Storm isn't going to do much against this, right? So, you can try, but just not how it works. And then, for fun, if you play Protoss, I'll give you guys something to have a nice dream about. So, this is why you want to split. And there you go. So, a little bit of a guide on splitting your Marines. And in my personal favorite, the pre-split using patrol. This has been another Top Terran tip tutorial from Nathanias. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please like this video if you liked it and you want more. And pretty please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I want to do something awesome when I get 10,000 YouTube subscribers. You can also watch me record these and do all sorts of other cool stuff on twitch.tv/Nathanias, where I play StarCraft live for 6 hours minimum a day, literally every single day that I'm not casting. See you guys then.